JxmyHighroller eben schon so einen Banger rausgehauen hat, gehen wir in den nächsten direkt rein. This is one mistake changed the NBA forever.
This is Camille. Chances are you have no idea who this man is. But over 50 years ago, Camille made a decision that would change the NBA as we know it. See, Camille was a professional soccer player in his home country of Cameroon in the late 60s. And he was good. For 2 years, Camille traveled the country playing the sport he loved at one of the highest levels. But his father wasn't a fan of sports and saw soccer as an activity for those who couldn't succeed in other areas of their life. So just as his soccer career was taking off, he had to retire to focus on a more respected career in politics and local government. Fast forward 2 decades, and Camille would go on to be the chief to a small town just outside of Yaoundé, Cameroon. And throughout his life, Camille grew quite the family, 10 children in total. One of them you might be familiar with, named Luc Mbamute. Luke, just like his father, loved soccer. His dream was to one day play professionally like his dad did. And growing up, Luke would focus on soccer and play the game almost exclusively until about the age of 13, where one day, while on his way to soccer practice, Luke noticed a basketball court that usually sat empty was being used by other local kids.
Mit 13 kannst du doch eine Menge machen.
The next few days, every time he passed the court, these boys were shooting hoops. And slowly, Luke's curiosity got the best of him. So later that week, when no one was around, he grabbed his soccer ball, headed
mit einem platten Basketball gespielt.
to practice. But this time, he stopped at the empty basketball court and took a shot. And that was it. He was hooked. For the next 10 years, Luke gave up soccer to focus on basketball. He quickly rose through the ranks in Cameroon's youth system and even gained the attention of college scouts in the United States after being selected to be a part of Cameroon's national youth basketball team, eventually earning a scholarship to play basketball at UCLA. His parents were reluctant to send their boy to the US, but remembering the difficult decision he had to make because of his father, Camille didn't want to stop his son from pursuing his dreams in sports. And so in 2004, Luke moved to the US and soon after enrolled at UCLA on a basketball scholarship. And 4 years later, after a decorated college career, Luke would become just the 3rd player in his country's history to be selected in the NBA draft. But this story
Da die Frage, Bruder, ob er mit dem 37. Pick, okay, bei Westbrook auch in dem Drafting war, okay.
doesn't end here. Because throughout his NBA career, Luke would frequently travel back to Cameroon to visit family and host his own basketball camp. And it was at his camp in 2011 where he discovered possibly the next great Cameroonian basketball player, a
Joel Embiid. Da ist er.
Tall, lanky kid who just picked up the sport a few months prior, had no real skill or finesse, but had all the potential in the world. His real passion was volleyball, and he was supposed to move to France later that year to play professionally. But Luke knew this kid was special. So under Luke's mentorship, the teenage prospect continued to develop his skills and moved to the US just 1 year later in pursuit of his basketball dreams. In the US, he enrolled at one of the best prep basketball programs in the country and quickly became one of the most sought-after recruits, growing to 7 feet tall, watching tapes of Hakeem Olajuwon to improve his game, and even earning himself a full ride to play at the University of Kansas. But not even Luke could have predicted just how fast he would excel. His game was getting better almost by the day. His potential was seemingly unlimited. And after just 1 season in college, the 20-year-old Cameroonian recruit would enter the 2014 NBA draft, where he was selected with the 3rd overall pick. His name? Joel Embiid, the greatest Cameroonian player in NBA history. One man giving up his sports dreams over 50 years ago triggered a series of events that would eventually lead to 2 others having the opportunity to live out theirs.
Die haben sogar zusammen gespielt, Bruder. Beste Leben, Alter. Einfach der fucking Butterfly-Effekt. Bro, das hat grad mich komplett
If Luc Mbamute never stopped at that court to take a shot on his way to practice, he might have never fell in love with the game. His journey to the NBA would have never happened. Maybe he focuses on soccer instead. He would have never hosted his basketball camps, and we would have never discovered one of the greatest players the world has ever seen. And that, ladies and gentlemen,
Ja, halt einfach Hakeem Olajuwon und Shaquille O'Neal in einen Körper gepackt, ne?
Is the butterfly effect. When a small and seemingly insignificant
Bruder, ich bin fucking 10 Stunden wach, Junge, als wenn ich selber das Video gerade gemacht habe.
occurrence has rippling effects through time, leading to some consequential event sometimes long after the initial event. And this is just one of many butterfly effects that would change the course of NBA history forever.
Bruder, wenn er schon mit sowas Geilem anfängt, ne, dann wird es ein absolut insanes Video. Bin ich am Schiel? Oder geht's?
Today's video is brought to you by Liquid IV.
Ich hab schon
Stay
gedacht, kein
hydrated and
Sponsor.
fueled with Liquid IV. Liquid IV entire drink mix, lemon lime for sponsor.
Traded the wrong guy. Einmal eine Frage an euch. Wen würdet ihr eher nehmen? Giannis oder Steph? Beide gleiches Alter. Beide gleiche Draft Class. Wen würdet ihr von den beiden nehmen? Giannis? Nee, Digga. Echt Giannis vor Steph Curry, der das ganze Basketballspiel revolutioniert hat? Aber da kommt dann wieder auch dieses von wegen, ne, der hat ein bisschen mehr Defense, der ist ein bisschen mehr versatile als Steph Curry, weil der ist halt einfach nur ein 6'2" der nur shooten kann, ne? Defense geht mittlerweile, Bruder, ne? Also bei deiner Ecke kommt der irgendwie 6'5" ist oder so, der sieht halt auch alt aus, ne?
Long before the Golden State Warriors.
Aber ich meine ja, ne, wenn sie beide gleich alt sind, beide gleiche Jahr gedraftet werden, also beide den gleichen Impact mit dem Team haben, keine Verletzung, beide, ne, zur gleichen Zeit in die Liga kommen, das wäre die Frage.
We're a dynasty riddled with Hall of Famers and a generational superstar. They were, not very good. The team spent the majority of 2 decades as one of the worst organizations in the NBA, finding themselves in the playoffs once in 18 years. Their one shining star during those years of perpetual mediocrity was a player who literally choked out the head coach. But entering the 2010s, Golden State began to put together a team that could actually compete. An electric, high-scoring guard in Monte Ellis, a star and a real inside presence with David Lee, and a baby-faced assassin by the name of Stephen Curry. This core group
Wildes Team gewesen
was
damals.
fun. Fans were re-engaged, but most importantly, they were good. The only thing standing in the way of them in a playoff spot was Steph Curry's ankles. Every time the Warriors picked up steam and got on a rhythm, Steph would go down with another ankle injury. But in
Deswegen hat er heutzutage auch nur noch hohe Schuhe und übelst getaped.
2012,
Und macht halt übelst viele Enkeltrainings.
there was a specific injury that would alter the timeline of Steph's career and the timeline of the entire NBA.
Barry Neal dribbling off his leg.
Oh my goodness.
Steph Curry hurt himself
his
again.
ankle. Oh, this is just heartbreaking is all I can say. I hurt for him personally and certainly hurt for the team and the organization.
After getting his ankle troubles under control in his first 2 seasons in the league, Steph, seemingly out of nowhere, sprains his ankle against the Spurs just 6 games into his 3rd year in the league. And
Ja, ich habe ganz kurz gedacht, der hat Black Air Force an. Gut, nach Janni wer. Janni geht rein, hau rein, Janni.
injury that would snowball out of control and re-aggravate again and again. Unlike his sprains in the past, this one lingered, causing him to miss entire chunks of the season. Even with his military-grade ankle braces, the sprain kept creeping back up, eventually leading to a season-ending surgery just 2 months after his initial injury. Meanwhile, the Warriors' season was in a tailspin, and a change was desperately in need before their window on what looked like a promising group closed. A trade was in need, and it would be a move that would make or break the next decade of basketball in Golden State. Their trade target, Milwaukee Bucks center Andrew Bogut.
Oh ja, guter Mann. Bleib noch hier bis zum 12er. Ja, nee, du bist der Allerbeste, Bruder. Also wie gesagt, ich bin komplett raus für Tuke, ne? So ohne Spaß. Das hat sich aber erledigt. Ne, ich werde dann jetzt wieder irgendein neues Story-Game anfangen oder erstmal Cyberpunk durchspielen.
Only way to get him, package one of their starting guards in the deal. The choice seemed pretty obvious at the time. Get rid of the guy with debilitating ankle issues and keep the borderline all-star scoring machine. And so on March 13th, 2012, just 2 days after Steph played his last game of the season before undergoing surgery on his right ankle, the Warriors and the Bucks agreed to a 5-player trade involving Andrew Bogut and Steven Jackson for Epe Udoh, Kwame Brown, and Monte Ellis. This came as a massive shock to the
Also Pi kann man auch spielen, ja man, der neue Spider-Man-Teil.
NBA world, as the Warriors just gave up arguably their best player and kept an unproven talent that
Müssen wir ein T-Shirt machen, wo einfach drauf steht, pack mich nicht ab.
couldn't even stay healthy. With every piece of evidence suggesting otherwise, the Warriors rolled the dice and chose to keep Stephen Curry instead of Monte Ellis.
Das ist auch eine harte Entscheidung als Franchise, weil du auf einer Seite hast du jemanden, der seit 2 Jahren eine dauerhafte Verletzung hat, Bruder, und die überhaupt nicht in den Griff bekommt, anscheinend. Ne? Er bringt zwar viel zum Table, ne? Das Shooting, dies und das, ist aber vor allem auch damals in der Liga war ja Shooting nicht das der Haupt. Damals sind die Leute ja noch hauptsächlich zum Korb gedrived. Halo wäre ein Ding, Digga. Ohne Spaß ja nicht. Und also sich für den zu entscheiden, anstatt den High-Scoring Guard Monte Ellis, der seit Jahren in der Liga ist, der Erfahrung hat, Digga, und definitiv produktiv sein wird, ist wild.
Leading to a series of events that would completely alter the landscape of the NBA for the next decade and creating one of the greatest.
Bruder, also jetzt mal kurz no joke, ne? Ich war ja Steph Curry-Fan, erstmal Steph Curry und dann aber auch Golden State-Fan, bin ich ja immer noch. Und erst bin ich ja voll eskaliert wegen Steph und so. Ne? Meine ersten Feinde waren leider die gegen LeBron, wo ich komplett aus allen Wolken gefallen bin, Bruder. Damals habe ich das auch gar nicht verstanden, dieses 3:1, das zu verlieren gegen LeBron, Digga. Ich glaube, ich habe erst ab dem 3. oder 4. Game eingeschaltet. Ganz frisch, das waren die ersten NBA-Games, die ich, glaube ich, gesehen habe. Und danach ist der Kevin Durant zu den Golden State Warriors gegangen. Und ich sage dir ehrlich, als Fan, Bruder, wusstest du nicht, was du davon halten sollst, Digga, außer dass du halt eigentlich schon sicher warst, Bruder, dass du jetzt ein super Team hast, was die nächsten paar Jahre garantiert die Championships holen wird, ne? Wurden halt nur 2 anstatt 4, aber trotzdem, Bruder, das war, also, es ist unbeschreiblich, Digga.
Dynasties in the history of basketball. The choice was theirs, and they made the right one. Except, not really. Years after this trade broke news around the league, it was discovered that the original deal wasn't Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut, it was Stephen Curry for Andrew Bogut. The Warriors were ready to build around the trio of Ellis, Lee, and Bogut. But after completing a physical with team doctors within the Milwaukee Bucks organization, the status of Curry's ankle injuries was unclear at best. So the Bucks denied the trade and proposed a new one with Monte instead.
Ja, was ich gerade gesagt habe, hatten die Bucks die Entscheidungsmacht und die haben sich dann doch für Monte Ellis entschieden, den jeder normal denkende Mensch wahrscheinlich nehmen würde. Ne?
And inexplicably, the Warriors accepted it. The same ankle injuries that gave Curry and the organization doubts about his future with the team, and even his future in the league, became the catalyst for one of the most pivotal trade decisions in the league's history. If Steph avoided those ankle injuries leading up to the trade, the Bucks would have accepted him in a package for Bogut. He would have ended up in Milwaukee, and the last 12 years of Warriors basketball that has redefined the league would have never happened. Instead, Steph would have joined the Bucks, where just 15 months after his arrival, he would have been paired with another player that might have sparked an entirely new dynasty.
With the 15th pick in the 2013
David Stern so am Schwitzen, Digga, dass er den Namen nicht falsch ausspricht.
NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Giannis Antetokounmpo from Athens, Greece.
Just
Also dafür, dass er das erstmal diesen Namen ausspricht.
one season after their blockbuster trade, the Bucks drafted an 18-year-old Giannis Antetokounmpo, which would have paired their new dynamic point guard with a young international talent they call the Greek Freak. If Steph avoided those ankle injuries, particularly this one against the Spurs that would linger and inevitably blow up his season in 2012, the Bucks.
Ja, dann pairst du im Endeffekt Giannis mit einem besseren Dame als heutzutage. Vor allem, als die beide noch jünger waren. Die hätten zusammen sich entwickeln können und sowas, Bruder. Das wäre for real das neue Duo wie Shaq und Kobe gewesen. Aber die haben, muss man auch dazu sagen, die haben halt beide noch länger gebraucht, bis sie wieder klarkamen. Ne? Ich glaube, Steph wurde erst dann nach dem 2. Jahr gut und Giannis hat auch 3, 4, 5 Jahre gebraucht. Ne?
Bucks would have accepted the trade offer that included him, and we may.
Manu, bist du Dame besser jetzt? Curry viel zu alt? Curry, der vor einem Jahr noch Championship gewonnen hat? Viel zu alt? Bist du ein LeBron-Fan, Manu? Muss ich dich erstmal ganz kurz fragen, Digga. Curry besser als Dame. Bruder, das sagt jeder klar denkende Mensch. Warte, dann müssen wir mal einen Post machen. Wenn wir schon so. Dame Time. Bin jetzt mal gespannt. Ich habe 2 Follower, Digga, ne?
may have seen an NBA featuring a Bucks team with 2 of the greatest players of all time. The Warriors dynasty potentially replaced with a Bucks dynasty, and an entire decade of era-defining basketball erased and replaced with an unstoppable team in Milwaukee.
Oder ich sag dir ganz ehrlich, das wäre absolut insane gewesen. Jetzt wäre die Frage, ob die so lange zusammengeblieben wären. Weil Milwaukee hat ja auch noch ihre Probleme gehabt, ne? Auch mit Giannis da. Ne? Also die haben ja viele Trades gehabt. Wie gesagt, Giannis hat ein bisschen Zeit gebraucht, aber Bruder, jetzt einfach mal so in der heutigen Version vorstellen, wie das, ne? Wir wissen ja, wie die letzten Jahre für die beiden gelaufen ist und die dann zusammen. Die hätten sich auf jeden Fall irgendwann darum geboxt, Digga, wer MVP bekommt, ne? Nee, wahrscheinlich Steph hätte am Anfang MVP bekommen und dann Giannis später. Und beide Double MVPs. Dann wäre ich wahrscheinlich jetzt auch Milwaukee Bucks-Fan.
Back in 1998, after having the NBA in a chokehold for the majority of a decade, the Bulls finished their last season together on top. But with their 6th championship ring came the demise of the best team in basketball. By the start of the lockout season of '99, the Bulls championship roster had been completely dismantled. Rodman was released, Pippen was traded to Houston.
Frage, wo wäre dann einer von denen hingetradet? Das ist, ne, das kann man jetzt bis zu sonst was spinnen. Horn ist besser in der League. Ist ein ganz schwieriger Typ, Manu. Rodman ist der allerbeste. Bruder, er sitzt da auch ein bisschen angespannt. Ne?
Phil Jackson retired. The team was a shell of itself, so Michael felt like his time in the league had come to an end, and so he retired as well. Except he wasn't ready to leave the game.
Erstmal ganz kurz, wenn du vorher Championships gewonnen hast, dann hast du keinen Bock. Mike war ja eben gerade noch eingefärbt mit diesen Menschen, die sind so alles nur Zweitleute, ne? Die interessiert ihn nicht. Und mit den 6 Spielern hast du keinen Bock nochmal als 6-time Chicago Bulls World Champion anzutreten, Digga. Weil alle haben immer noch den Chip auf the Shoulder, Digga, und wollen erstmal die Bulls ficken. Ne? Und Michael Jordan alleine dann im Endeffekt, die Scoring Load, okay, Tony Kukoc hätte noch ein bisschen was machen können, Bruder, aber die beiden haben, also ich glaube, die haben die beste Beziehung zueinander gehabt.
Come to an end. And so he
Dreimal
retired as
retired,
well.
Digga. Das schafft auch nur wirklich Michael Jordan.
Except he wasn't ready to leave the game. Over the years, Michael has been adamant about the fact that if the Bulls franchise brought back this team for another shot at a title, he would not have retired before the 1999 season. The one non-negotiable for Mike was that he refused to play for anyone other than Phil Jackson. But in the words of Jerry Krause, former Bulls GM, Phil Jackson could have gone 82-0 with this team, and he was still going to be let go at the end of the 98 season. This decision essentially forced Michael into retirement. But just 5 months after Jordan announced his second retirement, Phil Jackson was hired as the head coach of a Lakers team on the verge of becoming the next great NBA behemoth. Meanwhile, Michael, who says he was absolutely sure about his decision to retire, was not quite ready to leave the game behind. Over the next couple years, videos surfaced of Mike visiting Bulls practices, terrorizing players in one-on-ones, clearly better than anyone in the gym.
Der du kommst auf das ist ja im Endeffekt dann ein Zweitligisten-Team, Digga, die Chicago Bulls, die da übrig geblieben sind. Und dann kommt jedes Mal Michael Jordan vorbei und gibt euch allen einfach ein paar Buckets, Digga. Wer Bock drauf hat, Digga, weißt du. Einfach ein paar Younglings komplett auseinandernehmen, Digga. Youngblood, take the stroke, yeah.
Reports at the time even detailed Michael seriously considering suiting up and playing in Spain for half a season. But before Michael made his return in Washington, he would often visit the Lakers. During practice, before games, he would go to their games and sit courtside, something he virtually never did.
Ja, das sollten, und vor allem das Ding ist, das durften die Leute sich auch einfach gefallen lassen. Ne? Was willst du denn da machen, Digga? Du bist ja froh, wenn du gegen Michael Jordan spielen darfst. Ne?
With other teams. He would spend time with players, talking to Phil, even mentoring Kobe Bryant as he grew into a superstar. His involvement with the Lakers in the 1999 season was subtle, but had a massive effect on the team. Despite what he told us, Mike was not ready to retire in 1999. And with Phil Jackson coaching in LA, the obvious destination for the former Bulls great was to join the Lakers. But you see, the only problem was that by the time Jackson was hired to coach the team, Michael couldn't play basketball. It's been well documented that in the summer of 1998, Michael Jordan had caused severe damage to his right index finger while attempting to cut a cigar. In fact, in Jordan's retirement announcement, he mentions that the accident had severed a tendon in his finger and that the injury would require surgery. This injury, even if Michael never retired, would have sidelined him for the entire 1999 NBA season.
Deswegen hat er diesen dicken Finger da.
By the time he was physically able to return, the team that he had spent time around, developed relationships with, and was home to the only coach that he would play for were already champions, completely removing any possibility of Mike signing with the franchise since Michael refused to join a team that were already established champions.
Da hatte der keine Lust, den Kevin Durant zu machen.
It goes against everything the man believes. If Michael Jordan never severed his finger in a freak cigar cutting accident in 1998, the nagging itch he had to return to the game might.
Jetzt imagine, Bruder, der hätte sich nicht an der fucking Zigarrenschneider den Finger geschnitten, Digga, so dass er dann Tendon, also einen, wie sagt man, einen Muskelstrang im Endeffekt durchgerissen hat. Eine Sehne? Eine Sehne sogar. Dass er dann einfach, imagine, Bruder, Young Kobe, Old Michael und Young Shaq. Bruder, da explodiert mein Kopf. Was willst du denn machen? Kobe startet den Fast Break. MJ startet den Fast Break, wirft den Pass zu Kobe, der am Laufen ist. Kobe wird verteidigt von Scottie Pippen und den Alley zu Shaq, Digga. Der halt einfach schon unter dem Kopf steht. Und der war ja damals auch voll athletisch und war schnell. Das hätte so Geschichte, ja, Mann. Also, da hätte keiner was gegen machen können. Ne? Aber ich finde, dann hätte auch wahrscheinlich weil wäre dann nochmal mit den Lakers Champion geworden. Dieses ganze Bulls-Ding, ne? Vielleicht nicht mehr so diese Macht, die sie heute hat. Aber drauf geschissen, Bruder, ich hätte das so gerne gesehen.
Might have taken place 3 seasons sooner, with the only team that even had a chance at signing him, the Los Angeles Lakers. Instead, his injury delayed his return to the game and axed his chances of playing for Phil Jackson again and playing with Kobe and Shaq in a championship roster. This team could have happened. In a world where Michael Jordan doesn't get into a freak accident in the 1998 offseason, we may have seen a Lakers team featuring Shaq, Kobe, and Jordan entering the 1999 NBA season. Maybe instead of imploding a few years later, this team continues to win and stays together.
Es hätte nämlich auch sein können, dass sie einfach noch länger zusammenbleiben, weil sie den Mentor da haben, Michael Jordan, der die ganzen Bogen nochmal glätten könnte zwischen Kobe und Shaq.
Maybe Michael retires for the final time, not as a washed-up Washington
Ich glaube, dann hätte Shaq wahrscheinlich nicht seinen Diss-Track gegen Kobe gedroppt.
Wizard, but instead a Bulls and Lakers legend with 3 or 4 more rings. Or maybe Michael's tyrant leadership drives Shaquille O'Neal out of LA and we never get that 2000s Lakers dynasty at all. Maybe Michael's role on the team greatly reduces Kobe's and we never see the true potential of the Black Mamba. And maybe everything went exactly the way it was supposed to, because that's the butterfly effect. When something almost insignificant spurs a series of events that leads to something much, much bigger.
Wild, Digga.